Alright, today we're going to be changing the thermostat housing on a 2013 Mini Countryman S. This will be the same procedure for the 2011 to 2016 model. Even if you have the turbo or you don't have the turbo, this will be the same procedure, except with the turbo you'll have a few more things up here. So to start, we're going to drain some coolant from the bottom. It's going to be just under the front bumper. You're going to need some pliers. I'll list all the tools I use in the description below. Basically, we're changing this thing today. It's going to be right under there. So let's get to it. Alright, under the front bumper, we're going to drain some coolant. Otherwise you're going to dump a bunch of coolant all over the car. So we're going to do this clamp right here. I would suggest taking the left one off and not the right one, because this one doesn't have a retaining clip on it. So just going to undo it, you're going to pull it out, and you're going to drain coolant into a drain pan. I feel like I shouldn't have to say this, but make sure your car is cold to the touch before you actually drain any coolant so you don't burn yourself. I've drained some coolant, still draining a little bit. That was actually surprisingly difficult to get off, but use some pliers and just twist and turn it off. Next, I'm going to be taking off the air box, the intake hose, some vacuum lines. I'm going to make it easier to see. You may not have to take all of this off. So first ones, I'm going to take that screw off, and that is a T25, which is what I have here. And then I'm going to pull off the mass airflow sensor right here, this vacuum line right here, push, pull up, and then you're going to undo these clips right there and right there, pull this whole thing off. Alright, I've loosened this one, that's loose, that one's loose. You need to pull this hose right here. You're going to pull up on this metal tab right there, and you're going to just push it off like that. It's a sensor and a clip. Push that away. You're going to undo this retaining piece of plastic right there. Just pull this up. That'll come off. This one as well, pull that one off. I've already pulled that one off. Then I'm going to pull this off and the airbox. Alright, I've taken it and pulled it off. Don't forget to pull this out. This just pulls straight out. It also has a sensor on the end. I'm also going to loosen this to relieve some pressure. Let some air into the system. Maybe a little bit more coolant will drain. We're going to do this, so I've already removed T25 there, doesn't come all the way out. Just loosen it. Next, I'm going to grab this and just pull up. And it's going to pull up, unclip. This hose under here is going to twist out of it. So you're going to twist it out by pushing up on this, pulling around. This is probably going to take two hands, but you're going to twist it away and pull the hose out this way. Alright, so that did take two hands. You're going to push down on this down as you twist this back, and it'll come out. And that's all it was. I'm going to take this out all the way. Next thing, you're going to take this hose out. Right here, it comes up here. You're going to push the tabs on the bottom and the top back with your fingers or a screwdriver or whatever works, and then that is going to push out, and you're going to rotate this out by twisting it that way. So pull the tabs, rotate it out. Alright, now that we've gotten all of that out, I want to show you this part. So there is, never mind that, I glued it back together because that's where mine broke, was the bleeder screw right there. So you see this clip right there that goes in with the metal across the top of it. You want to make sure, if you have a 2013 model, which one you have. They changed it partway through the 2013 year. I have the newer one with the flat piece. The older one has a circular or a square piece. Make sure you do that before you buy the part. You can see it by looking down from the top. But anyways, we're going to be taking out what's behind it, this giant bundle of wires. Took out all the plastic. Everything on a Mini is plastic. So next we're going to look at the new one, and we're going to figure out what screws we have to undo. There's one on top, there's one on the side there, and one down there. I believe they're all 10s, and then we have about 5 different hoses to pull off. 2 on this side, 3 on this side, and then that one there is just going to push in on the back. So let's get started. I'm also going to remove this reservoir. This is a 10 millimeter. I'm going to remove this so I can see better. Anyways, don't lose that screw. Pull this up, pull straight up, and then that comes out of its rubber fitting down there. So you're going to pull it up and back. We're just going to move that off to the side. There is a retaining clip there. Pull that metal clip, pull this out the bottom. It will probably leak coolant, so I'd put your coolant catch can under there as well. and then I'm gonna move it off to the side. All right, I'm gonna remove the electrical connectors. Remember, this one is a yellow and white wire. The one down there on the back side under here is an orange and white wire. They look the same other than the color, so remember those. Also going to loosen this hose clamp right down there. I'm gonna loosen the one on the back over here, and I'm gonna pull those hoses out. I did just remove the entire reservoir, unscrewed it from down there. It was just easier. Coolant catch can down there. You're going to spill a lot of coolant if you didn't drain it, and you probably will still spill coolant anyways. So I'm gonna start by just pulling these hoses off. That one there, that one there, that one back there. All right, I pulled this big coolant hose, pulled it all the way back. While doing that, there is also a vacuum line you're going to want to pull off. It's that little, focus for me, stub right there. Pull this line that's right there. My fingers touch and pull that off. It just pulls. There is no clamp. I'm also going to pull the line here on the wastegate. I'm going to pull that off. If you don't have a turbo, you're not going to have to pull that off because this won't be here. Next, under here, you can see back there, I spilled a ton of coolant all over the top of the transmission, but that right in the middle, that clamp, you're going to pull that clamp and pull that hose off. That connects to the reservoir tank, which we've already pulled off. I'm going to start with that. If you have clamps, I'd use them. All right, so pardon the terrible camera angle, but that hose came off pretty easily. I used normal pliers to get that clamp on the left side off, and then that hose pulled right off of the peg that's behind it. Dumped even more coolant out, but yeah, so that came right off. If it's difficult for you, I wouldn't be surprised. Probably once we take the actual housing off, you'll be able to twist that off since it's the bottommost one, and this whole apparatus moves pretty easily. Next, we're gonna go to the back. We're gonna take the two hose clamps off back here, and we're gonna pull the two hoses on the back off. All right, so we're on the back of the engine. Unscrewed this one. This hose just comes off. This one didn't leak any coolant for me. The next one is below this. It's hard to see in the video, but the clamp is right down there. That's what you're gonna unscrew. And then my finger is touching the hose you're gonna pull off. And that's what we're gonna do next. So somehow, oh, you didn't do this one yet, but this front hose comes off as well. It's probably the easiest one of all of them is this one right here. And that'll be the clamp you take off. And then we're gonna get to the bolts. All right, first bolt is just under here. I've moved all these cables down and held them down, and then I'm gonna loosen it there. So that's the first bolt out of 3. All right, do the easy bolt first. Keep it right there. Hard one second. So this is the second bolt. It's the one we showed earlier when pulling that hose. I have it on right now. You can see it, it's right under there. This will be the second out of 3. All right, we're getting the third and final bolt. It's going to be down here on the back side. I have the ratchet on it right now, but it's going to be directly under this input right here where we pulled the top hose off on the back side. It's gonna be right under there. This is your last bolt. Now that you've gotten all the bolts out and all the hoses off, it's going to unseat itself. As you can see, it's kind of pulled away from the block. There is a plastic hose that goes directly in back there. So you're gonna shimmy this back and forth while pulling with your other hand on the plastic hose on the back, and that's gonna get it out. Won't be able to do it while holding this camera. All right, so while pulling on the back and twisting, I got it out. This is the old one. This right here, you can see there's JB weld on it. I was using the bleeder valve to unscrew it and get air out, and it snapped. This whole thing just snapped off because old plastic, so I glued it back on until I had time to do this. This is your thermostat. You could probably save this if yours didn't go bad in case your new one ever goes bad. But here's the old gasket, and that's what we pulled out of the block. Now what we're gonna do is we're going to clean, that looks pretty bad. We're gonna clean, actually this is probably grease from, this has probably been replaced before. And then we're going to clean the mating surface for this gasket and clean the hole that this goes into before we put the new one in. All right, down here, what we're gonna do next, we're gonna clean this mating surface. This is where the pump is gonna go. Then off there to the right is where the hose is going to go. We're gonna clean them with brake cleaner. So I got brake parts cleaner. I'm gonna use a paper towel. I'm gonna clean the mating surface so that you don't have any issues with sealing correctly or any dirt getting stuck in there. All right, so I put oil on this O-ring here so it'll slide in. They had grease on it initially, so you can use whatever you want. Anyways, when I'm putting this back in, I'm actually going to put the hose on that one right there, and I'm gonna put the hose on this bottom one as well, because those were difficult to get off, so I'm gonna make sure I can get them back on. All right, there's no way to film this and hold the camera, so basically I slid the new pump in under here, and I initially put on the hose, which is under there, that hose. I haven't put the clamp on yet, but slide that hose on before you do anything else. Then I did this back hose as well, the one down there, that one right there, and I pushed that one on, and then I'll need to tighten that as well. But basically, the piece that comes out, this piece right here, you'll attach the two hoses on the bottom, and then this will slide in. There's a little plastic receiver. You cannot see it. It's under the air intake. That's going to push in, and there's going to be kind of like a thunk feel when you push it in. It's not difficult. Just kind of like nicely jimmy it in. I'd put a grease or oil on that O-ring so you don't tear it or fold it, and you push in and it pops in. Easy enough. All right, so I got that top bolt in right under there, and I'm gonna hand tighten it a little bit to level it, but hand tighten in just a few turns, get that leveled so I can get the other two bolts in. But to get that one in, I had to lift up on the water, the thermostat housing, lift up and kind of pull this way a little bit to get that bolt hole to line up and maintain the hose in the back staying in. So I have the bottom two hoses attached and this top bolt in, and the plastic one that goes into the receiver under the intake. I have all of that in right now, and we'll continue on. All right, so to get the bottom bolt, I actually had to pull the clamp right there back some in order to get it on, but I could leave the hose on, so I don't have to take the hose off. And tighten each of these just a little bit till you feel some pressure, and then we're going to even them out. So you're gonna tighten the top one a little bit, and then you can tighten the side one, and then the back one, and in a triangle motion so you get a nice good seal. You're not gonna crank down on these. This is plastic going onto aluminum. You're either gonna strip the thread or you're gonna crack the plastic. Put it on snug, but don't crank on it. Just use wrist motion, and that should be it for tightness. All right, so we have the bolts done and the two bottom hoses and the plastic hose that goes on the back. Now we're gonna put back in gonna hook up the thermostat. So remember, it's yellow and white goes in this one, orange and white goes in the one on the bottom. So I think I'm actually gonna go around this side, but yeah, gonna click this one in, click that in right there. Then we have one of the hoses goes right here, the vacuum line. It should be here somewhere. There it is. Vacuum line goes there. Push on. And then we have down here, we have the orange one, and this goes under here. So it goes right under here. There's a plastic clip. And sorry, bad view, but it goes right under there. All right, just buttoning up the last few things on the thermostat. Leftmost hose goes in the leftmost outlet. So front hose, left outlet. The right hose goes in the top outlet right in here. And then the back hose, this is the top rear hose, goes in the top. Tighten all of those down. And then I guess if you pulled the wastegate, put that back on as well. And then we're gonna move on to putting the intake back together. All right, we're gonna put the reservoir tank back in. So we're gonna take this, we're gonna hook up the hose right here, so the nipple down there. Then we're going to plug the bottom in, that to there, and then you're going to put your 10 back in up here. All right, we got that all buttoned in. Now we're going to put in the giant intake hose, or pipe, and then we're going to put it in, twist that way as you do it. Then we're going to put our hand down through here, pull on the bottom, and that'll just drop in. And then you're going to click it into the tabs in the front. Next, we're going to put the air box in. We're going to tilt this backward so you can slot that pipe into that hole. It's going to tilt back, and then you click it into place like that. Make sure the vacuum line right here and this cable are on the other side of this pipe, so they go over the top when you plug all this in. All right, I couldn't get the hose to lock in, so I ended up having to take the top off. These three are all T25s, same as the one down there. All right, T25 there. These three across the front, I would just tighten them using the socket. Don't use your ratchet, you'll strip them. Plug this back in, tighten the hose clamps there, plug in the mass airflow sensor, hook up a vacuum hose there, and then plug it in here. Just clicks. You're going to plug in this one here to retain the wiring harness, plug in your other vacuum line, and make sure the sensor clicks. This should click in when it's done. go. Nice little click. So that's everything buttoned up top. You can also click in this one. Next, we're going to go with refilling the coolant here and the bleeder valve down there. All right, next thing we're going to do, we're going to fill the expansion tank with coolant. I got this kind of coolant, all vehicles, and then I'm going to mix it with water because I have the concentrate. And we're also going to crack this bleeder valve. This is the old one, and the new one is right down there. Yeah, I have the screwdriver on it. You're going to need a big screwdriver, and you're going to turn that a few turns to let the air out. And we're going to bleed the air out of the system and make sure we don't have any leaks. Before we get an argument in the comments, you can use this stuff because your vehicle, this Mini, does not use organic or oat coolant, which has a different kind of silicate in it. So you can use this kind of coolant. Now you're going to fill up. You're going to fill it up till it hits the line right there. So I have it filled. Then you're going to crack the bleeder valve, which is down there, that little valve, until coolant comes out. Add a little bit come out, and then you're going to start the vehicle and let it warm up till it gets hot, and then you're going to turn on the heat on full blast to get the coolant cycling through the heater core and everything like that. So let's get started on that. All right, as it's running, you want to leave this top off so it can suck down any more coolant. It hasn't gotten hot enough to start cycling yet. And you want to make sure you don't have any leaks. So nothing that would be a leak, that's from earlier. Nothing dripping off to indicate that you did not tighten one of the hoses or the gasket is failing or something like that. And then make sure to periodically loosen the bleeder screw down there to make sure the air is getting out. As you can see, there's a little bit of water because I let all the air out and a little bit of water came out, and then I closed the screw back up. All right, and that's it. I added about a gallon combined, and then I combined them both into here. So this is about full. So about 4 quarts is how much I got back in there, and this is completely full. So that wraps it up. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll put the tools I used in the description below.